with 300 million pounds worth of players and the resources that come from that should do. And they really don't have much before then. But Ken, I want to just circle back just a second. I think it's presumptuous for us to say, hey, look, I think most of those guys didn't support them prior to 2006. So it's probably going to offend those guys. And I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and assume that they've all been fans for a long time. They didn't act like it today.
They didn't know who Matthew Harding was.
Well,
Ollie, I sang it. If you're listening, Ollie, I did sing it.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, we did.
And they didn't bat an eyelid.
No, most didn't.
Not a fucking clue.
It's not my finest moment. Sorry, I had to sing it.
Yeah, I told you. I said, if you sing about Matthew Harding, I said, I bet they won't know what you're on about. And they didn't.
Because they don't know the history of their club. They don't have a clue.
I would agree. And so one of our supporters that was standing by me, and I can't remember his name. I think he was anyway, but I can't remember his name. But he told this guy and again, he was a nice guy, but he told him, he goes, mate, you're an empty shirt. The guy that was saying, well, I like Spurs as well, and he said, mate, you're an empty shirt, and then he just turned around and walked away. And I tried to kind of diffuse it a little bit, but anyway.
And maybe that was his intent. Maybe he was trying to diffuse the situation and just coming up with a story but we don't know that, and you hope it's not true. But
there was another guy that was trying to situation who was a really actually nice guy, and I was just trying to explain to him why some of our guys were so bent out of shape about what they did, and he's like, but wait, he goes, man, stop, he goes, think about it, he goes, we should all be happy that so many people are in an American bar to watch an English league match, a Premier League match. And I said to him, my immediate reaction was, as a Spurs fan, I said, I don't really care about that at all. And I kind of owe that guy, I think, a little bit of apology, because I do care about that. I do. I'd much rather prefer it, though, for a national team. The spirit of the Premier League is that clubs don't mingle with other clubs. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And this guy, said, well, we share the Londoner with Arsenal fans. And I'm like, well, okay, I think you do.
Two peas in a fucking pod.
It's very rare, and I think that's more of a function that place is really big, and they can separate fans, and they can do it as opposed to kind of a more wider open place. So yeah, evidently we're scared of them, and we can't take wound up, and that's just kind of juvenile, really. It's silly.
All right, that's enough airtime for them. They don't deserve anything more than that.
I think it's great. That I'm going to get tweets tomorrow from this one guy, and when I give out my awards later,
God.
I will. So fine, bring on the publicity. I will never listen to an Arsenal pod. I'll never listen to a Chelsea pod. But these guys are clearly so consumed with us, in addition to coming to our pub, finding where we were going to be, right, that they have to listen to our podcast, which is really pretty pathetic. If you think you've wound us up, right, then fine. Then you're going to listen to our podcast? Great. We'll get your listen. Well, every one of you.
And by the way, this podcast is going to go and go and go, so we're doing it just so that you get to listen to even more.
Yes. We typically do about, 2.5 hours each podcast?
Something like that.
3, 4, yeah.
Maybe tonight we will be 3 or 4, but
because we're old and pathetic, and we've got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
He wants me to mention his name. I know he wants me to mention his name, and I can't remember his name, but I know his Twitter handle. So.
What? That's his name.
All right. So what else?
You know what? Earlier in the week, actually, was it yesterday? Yesterday, we got a chance to sit down with Ledley and the Kings. Three of them anyway. Adam, Darryl, and David. And we want to bring that to you as well. So without any further ado, this is our interview from yesterday with Ledley and the Kings. All right, with us on the Hotspur America Podcast this week, we do have Darryl, Adam, and David from Ledley and the Kings. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Good,
Great,
thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, really, we're really taken aback. Thank you so much for coming on. It's obviously been a whirlwind couple of weeks for you guys. I went back, I saw on your Twitter, not on your Twitter, but your Facebook page, February 19th was when it was created. So obviously this is something that's kind of brand new that you guys have put together.
Yeah, we had the idea in December after the semi-final draw. We thought we had a pretty good chance of making it to the final, and we were all talking about favourite Spurs memories. And it came up that in 2010, I'd rewritten the squad part of these lyrics for the squad we had at that time. And I think we just started talking from there and thought, well, why don't we try and write a song for this cup final, should we make it? And it really has just taken off from there.
Unbelievable.
That's just crazy. Now, go ahead, Sammy. I'm sorry.
Well, I was saying, so back up. Tell us all about yourselves. Ages. How. Where you live. How long you've been supporting the club, and your mates, and you've obviously given us a little bit of the genesis of the song, but we'd love to know a little bit more about you, and then just sort of take it from there.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so we're all 27, 28 years old. Everyone lives in and around sort of northwest London, and have all been going to Spurs for maybe around 20 years, largely together, particularly over the last sort of 10, 15 years as we've been driving up and down the country.
Yeah, and Darryl and I have had season tickets next to each other for the last 20 years, and without really realising it, we only kind of became mates 4 or 5 years ago.
What block?
E block in the East Stand Upper. So we've sat next to each other for close to 20 years, but only really started talking about 4 or 5 years ago, and just really fun since then.
That's pretty amazing. For me, that's just like, it's kind of like why we started the podcast. It was one of these things where we've kind of been bouncing around for a year or two with each other, and a part of Dallas Spurs, and wanting to be a little bit more a part of the club culture. I was a fan of the podcasts, and I know that Simon listened, and Sam as well. You listen to the Spurs show and Fighting Cock and Owen the Spurs and the Rule the Roost and all of the other podcasts that are out there. And I was like, I always had kind of an opinion on some things, and I never really tended to agree with what they were saying. And I was like, I wanted to have my own voice. And so we kind of started Hotspur America, and it's turned into something that's really kind of cool. We're going to have a lot of the supporters groups. There's about, I want to say close to about 41 North American supporters groups that are over here now. So getting those board members on and letting us go ahead and do our thing here is kind of cool. And it kind of melds with the same type of thing that you guys have done. You've taken some friends, gotten them together. Hey, let's record this. And before you even start, or was it after the fact, did you already have it recorded? When you go to Chaz and Dave, and when you go to the club and you start getting all these permissions from people, and you get the club to sponsor it, in conjunction with the Tottenham Tribute Trust, how did all that come about? How does that work?
Well, after we were discussing this when we were in a pub and coming up with new words, a couple of us, Dave works in advertising, specialising in music, and I'm a music lawyer myself. So once we had the idea of what we were going to do, we knew the ways in which we needed to go about doing it if we were going to do it. And I think the important thing for us was that we came to Chaz and Dave not as people who have no idea about it. We actually kind of knew what we needed to do, and I think they respected the fact that we, they weren't speaking with complete, idiots really.
Just not on that.
Yeah, to be fair, we are idiots for doing it in the first place, but I know what you mean. But no, we to be honest, it was, we played around with the words, we came up with some final lyrics, and we went to record it last Tuesday. At that time, there was absolutely no interest from the club. It was only after we recorded it and started circulating around the final product that people actually started to believe in it. Chaz and Dave were always very supportive. They gave us the 1-inch master tapes for it, which are still sitting in my bedroom. I need to return that at some point next week. It's all just happened from Tuesday till Wednesday when the club got involved. Wednesday evening, they asked us, do you want to come on the pitch at halftime against Fiorentina?
Wow.
Thursday, which I think was probably the 19th, something around that, when the Twitter handle was started, that's when we thought, right, let's see what we can do with this. Since then, we've been on news channels, in newspapers. We went on a show called Soccer AM this morning that had Odell Beckham Jr. was one of the guests.
Oh, cool.
We managed to get a picture with him, and hopefully he'll tweet out a message later on. It's just all been an absolute whirlwind, but not anything to do with like what we intended in the first place. It was all, imagine if this happens, rather than going out with the intention to do it. But it's fantastic that the club have decided to get behind it, and it all, we always wanted to give the money towards the Tottenham Tribute Trust, and Chaz and Dave have been kind enough to agree to that as well, because we are making use of their music.
Right.
But the fact the club got behind it is incredible.
I think that's why the last couple of weeks have been so crazy, to be honest, because we all started it as just a bit of a joke, a bit of fun, without any expectations as to where it could go. And then, as Darryl says, suddenly you're on the pitch and have nearly 1,000 people on Twitter asking what the lyrics are and etc. So what started as a bit of fun a couple of weeks ago is now completely dominating our lives, which is fantastic.
Go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
We were in the pub after recording it, and we said, this is actually quite good. Imagine if the club picked it up. And then we just started laughing. No, I can't even begin to think about that. And then, well, if they pick it up, we might be on the pitch. No, don't even think about it.
Talk about a way to make your 15 minutes of fame last a little bit. I mean,
we properly milked it. Like,
completely.
Absolutely.
And I know that you, like you said, you've made the TV rounds, you've made the radio rounds, the podcast rounds, obviously. You must be pinching yourselves. I've never been to the Lane. These guys have. In fact, Sam went this year to the Derby, and he's been to multiple. And Simon, he was there for a long time and has gone to many matches and still flies back. I'll be going for my first time in May. I can't even imagine walking out on that pitch. You had to be over the moon.
It was an incredible experience, but I don't think that any group of fans has been as involved in a cup final as we have become unintentionally. We've always loved Chaz and Dave, and now we look at it, and if we go on a win tomorrow, if we don't win tomorrow, it's going to be the curse of the Ledley and the Kings. Losing the last cup final this song was involved in, losing this one. But if we do go on and win it, then we almost we could go down in folklore, completely unintentionally. Especially if Soldado scores, then we'll be up there with Nostradamus in the predictions as well. So
that's a big if.
That's a big if.
That's a big ask, brother.
I wouldn't worry too much about that.
I feel so bad for him. Oh goodness. Simon, you got something you want to pop in with?
Well, you guys did bring it up that the song last appeared in '87, and I have vivid memories of being in London for that final, and that was one of the most unhappiest days in my life. So please don't replicate it tomorrow. Are you guys going to the final? I'm assuming you're all going.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah.
You lucky bastards.
Who are you going with? Just yourselves? Are you bringing some family, girlfriends, wives, what?
It's all kind of guys and dads, really.
Yeah, tomorrow, much like you guys, actually, we're all getting together in a pub beforehand. We've rented out a space. I think there's about 45 of us, ranging from us to our parents and friends. So everyone in and around the area is all Spurs. We're going to be hanging around together for 3-4 hours before the game, and then making our way en masse to Wembley.
Nice. That is just going to be so much fun. You can't see it like from my end on iTunes and stuff, and I was looking earlier this morning to see what the numbers may have been, but I can't see it. How many downloads have you guys sold of this thing?
We don't know, because the distributor that we have won't give me accurate figures until the middle of April on this. But we've had over 105,000 views on YouTube. We were, I think, at one point the 27th or 28th most downloaded song on iTunes for a particular period. We were in the official UK charts at 91. I think you can't get that sort of level without selling a reasonable amount of figures. So, I think hopefully we'll be able to raise, a couple of £1,000 for the Tottenham Tribute Trust, which is a fantastic charity.
I know that Daniel Wynn, when he was on with us, he talked a lot about the trust, and it's something that if there's anything that we can do to help them while we're there, we're thinking about maybe having a live show either at the Billy Nick or at the Bell and Hare or the Irish Club or Irish Center rather, or one of the other pubs there, and maybe try to do something where they can maybe do something at the door, and we can give that money back to the trust. How important is that to you as individuals when you see, like, I saw Gaza on I forget what the name of the TV show was, where they were at the Lane and they had done something with him, and he looks so much better than he did, I guess it was 6 months ago, as he was kind of going through a rough time in his life. And it makes you feel, as a supporter, if I'm giving to this organization, I know that they've reached out to Paul and a number of others. I know Dave Mackay, he's my favorite all-time Spur, and he's suffering from Alzheimer's and some other issues as well regarding his health. And I want to be able to give to an organization that's going to help these players out. It must be for as much as you guys are going to be able to do with this, which I have a feeling is going to be exponentially more than anybody can do on an individual level, it must make you feel very proud.